Hey, my name's Danny, and I have been asked to teach you guys how to make light your balls on fire Texas chili. So, if you know anything about Texas chili, in my ingredients you will not see any beans. The first thing I'm going to do is go over a few things that we'll use. You won't need a whole lot. You need a frying pan or a deep pan. You'll need some kind of a pot, because we are going to make a lot, because this is Texas. And you'll need some kind of a small blender and a spatula or a wooden spoon or anything like that. So really, there's not a whole lot to it. So I'm going to go over the ingredients. First, we have our meat. The first meat that we have is just chuck steak, and I dice it all up so I can take some of the gristle and tendons out of it. Then I have some ground beef. Now this is a coarse ground chuck, and it's designed specifically for chili. You can use regular, but this will hold up and give you a little bit chunkier meat when you're eating. The other ingredients we have is I've done 2 large jalapenos. Do 3 if you got small ones. I've done 3 habaneros. The habanero is where we get the real heat. We've got about 3/4 of an onion. I have roasted a garlic clove and peeled it, and it's ready to roll. So we've got most of it prepped. In my chili, we use tomatoes. Some people tell me that Texans don't use tomatoes in their chili, but my mother did, and her side of the family settled Texas, and you got problems with it, you can go all the way back to the 1800s and tell them not to do it. So that's how my family did. Now I do substitute a can of tomatoes for some Rotel Hot. This also comes with some extra chilies in it, adds a lot of flavor, also adds some heat. I've opened up some tomato paste. You may want to have it. We may not use it, depends on how thick it gets, but sometimes you need a thickener in there, and this will do it. Then we have spices. We got red pepper, black pepper, paprika. I've got my secret ingredient, which is ground cinnamon. We don't use a lot, but we will use some. Then I've got cumin, chili powder, and just regular salt. I like sea salt, and I like coarse ground, and it tends to break off when it cooks, so it'll cook down, but I like that better. And then you're going to want a little bit of masa or some cornstarch. That is going to help thicken it up. And then when we saute the onions, we'll have a little bit of butter. I also forgot one of the most important parts, 2 ounces worth of a big chili pepper. This one is a Portland chili. I prefer Hatch chilies if you can get them, and the more of those, the better. Unfortunately, they are not in season right now, and this is the only chili I could get. Then we also we'll use a little bit of oil. I use avocado oil, and then we're also going to put a little beer in ours. And because it's Texas and this is Light Your Ass on Fire beer, or Light Your Balls on Fire chili, we've got Fireman's 4. It is made here in Texas. So your first step when cooking is to open the beer. One of them we're going to put in, the other one we're going to drink. So the first step is I've chopped up the chili just enough to get it into the blender. I'm going to put my Rotel in just so that there's some good liquid that we can chop. These tomatoes are already diced. They're going to get a little bit more mutilated, but the diced ones are going to stay in there. I'm pouring in my habanero pepper, and I'm pouring in my my garlic, the clove of garlic. So we put all that in, and we're going to blend it. We really want to mince this up to get this pepper so it's all over the place. I've already put the oil in, and I've got the oil hot, and I'm going to take my meat, and we're going to brown the meat. So that's going to be our next step, is getting all the meat browned. Not only am I going to do the chuck, but I'm also going to do the ground. So typically, a recipe calls for about 2 pounds of what we're making. I'm a big guy, and I like meat, and I like meat and chili, so I've got about 3 1/4. So I'm a little bit more meat than normal. So yours may not look quite this big. And so we're just going to go in here. Also, I pre-season the meat and let it sit for about an hour. I feel like it gives the meat a little bit more flavor. When it cooks, not all the flavors come out. So I have some salt, some pepper, put a little bit of garlic powder in there, a little bit of cumin. So the meat will have some flavor already. So I'm going to go ahead and brown up all this meat. But here's what we're looking at, and just keep going until it's all brown. All right, so now we've got our ground beef all brown, all of our chuck. It's all brown and ready to go. we're going to transfer this to the pot. You want to try to leave the juices in because we're going to cook with the juices, the fat from the meat. If you feel like your meat was too fatty, you can drain some off. It's okay to drain a little bit off. You don't want to have too much fat or else your chili is going to taste like fat, and that's never good. We want good chili, not fat chili. So, all right. So now I got my meat in my pot. I'm going to leave that there for a few minutes. And we're going to go ahead and start sauteing out our onions and our jalapenos. So we're going to get those cooking and cook them on down. And that's where our butter comes in handy. If you need a little bit more grease in the bottom of it, the butter will help saute your onions and your jalapenos. So you do want to get the jalapenos good. Fresh jalapenos are great, but in chili, if they're too fresh, if you don't cook them down enough, then you just get a big taste of jalapeno and not enough of the full chili flavor. So we're going to start doing that, and we're going to start adding our spices. So the crazy part about chili is season to taste. So if you don't want it real hot, you want to leave that habanero pepper out. Or leave one of the jalapenos out. So you want to put some salt in there, usually about half a teaspoon, but again, if you're a big salt person, I use coarse black pepper, and so you're going to want to put your black pepper in there. The chili powder, I'm going to use about a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons. I've got about a tablespoon and a half in here that I'm putting in, and that was the last of my chili powder. Same thing with the ground cumin. You want to be about 1 to 2 tablespoons of ground cumin. Then with the paprika, you want about only about a half a teaspoon of paprika. So that's gets all our spices in there to add a little bit more heat. And again, you can leave this one out, but the red pepper adds some heat. You don't want to use too much of that, maybe about a 1/4 cup. Now all of this is just going to start cooking and cooking down and getting nice and soft. And you should have a really good aroma going by now, even though you don't have your meat in here. The aroma should be fantastic. Now for the cornstarch, as this starts cooking down, you're going to want to add the cornstarch. And you can add as much as 2/3 of a cup. I think that's really too much. You wind up adding a whole lot more liquids, and you can always add more. Just always remember, it's easier to add than it is to take it out. So if you can see, I'm not sure if y'all can see what's in this pan or not. I'm trying to get it there. But it's starting to cook down and hold all the flavors in real good. And I've cooked out almost all the grease. As you can see my big smoke going on. I'm going to take, that's a tablespoon. I'm only going to get about half of that. And I'm going to throw in the butter. Go ahead and let that melt down. See how thick we get it. And if you inhale the fumes, you will cough. I have a vent hood, but I want to make sure you guys can hear me, so I apologize for that. All right, so we can move the camera because the food looks way better than I do anyway. So this is how it looks. Here's the time you're going to add a little bit of your beer. You do that with the cornstarch because that'll thin it out a little bit. We want to see how it is. The beer will add a little bit of flavor, and that foam was just from the heat. So, and I haven't added near the cornstarch that I think I'm going to add because, like I said, we want to try to keep thickening it up. And when you add the cornstarch, what we're doing is we're going to take it and just kind of fold it. Which is why I like the spatula. A wooden spoon will do good because it won't tear up your stuff. but I like the spatula because it cleans it real well. So I'm going to take about another half a tablespoon, put that in there. Because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add that tomato mix that we made with the habaneros and the other chili. So that's our good chili mix. You can start seeing, you're starting to get, brown reddish color. Big bowl of red is what they call Texas chili. And so you're starting to see how that's starting to fold up. We're going to go ahead and add the other diced chili, or the diced tomatoes I put in. These were fire roasted. I like the fire roasted because they add flavor. Any tomato will work. Any of your basic tomatoes are going to work. And we're going to take this and we're going to let it cook down. I don't think I'm going to add any more of the cornstarch because I think we're good. I also don't think I'm going to need to add the tomato paste because I think we're pretty good with that too. So really all we're going to do now is we're going to start and fold it, let it thicken up a little bit, probably about for 5 minutes or so. And when we get done with that, we'll come back, we'll show you what it is, we'll mix it with the meat, and we'll go from there. Alright, so we didn't have to add any more cornstarch. You may or may not, just depending on how much of the liquid you put in, how much liquid was in your tomatoes. Again, it's kind of seasoned to taste, but it's starting to get that brown red color. You can see the tomatoes in there. You can see all your spices, the jalapenos, the onions. So now we're ready to marry this with our big pot of beef. So we take this. Another reason for a spatula. Gets everything out. Take that. Now we're going to mix that in with our beef. And we're going to let that cover and simmer. And I like to simmer it for quite some time. Before we do, 1/4 teaspoon. We're going to go in and we're going to get the cinnamon. It gives it a little bit of zest. So just a little bit is all you need. Cinnamon goes a long way. Also, when you're cooking, don't confuse your cinnamon with your cumin. They look just alike. They read almost the same. And if you mix those, you will not be happy because too much cinnamon is a mistake. But a little bit of cinnamon just adds some flavor. So I'm going to take my pot right here. This is my pot of thick chili right here. And we're going to let this thing simmer. And I'm going to let mine simmer for about 15 to 20 minutes. The thing about chili, tomorrow it'll be better than it is today, as all those flavors just start crossing over. As we're stirring, we'll go in there and we'll take some taste test. If we feel like that we don't have enough of one or another, we'll add it. As I said, season to taste. You like more pepper, get more pepper. You like more salt, get more salt. The thing about chili, tomorrow it'll be better than it is today.